All right, today we're going to dig into the work of psychologist Adam Alter and his seriously powerful frameworks for breaking through those moments in life when you just feel stuck. Let's get right into it.
So let me just ask you a simple question. Do you ever feel stuck? I mean, right now, maybe in your job, a relationship, some creative project. If you found yourself nodding along, you are so not alone. In fact, that feeling is way more common than you'd think.
And here's the proof. In his research, Adam Alter discovered something wild. When he asked people that question, they didn't have to sit and think about it. Nope. The answer came almost instantly, within seconds. That just shows you how close to the surface that feeling is for so many of us.
And when we feel stuck, it usually shows up in a few familiar places, right? The big ones are pretty obvious. Our jobs, our relationships, our finances. But it can also be something a little more subtle, like that book you just can't seem to finish, or just this nagging feeling of being disconnected from everything.
So, the big question is, how do we get out of it? Well, Alter's first major idea is that we have to completely reframe how we think about the struggle itself. And it all starts with this fascinating concept he calls the creative cliff illusion.
The creative cliff illusion is basically our default setting as humans. You know that moment when things get really hard and that little voice in your head says, "Oof, this is tough. Maybe it's time to quit." We think we've hit a wall, but what Alter's research shows is that this is a total illusion. That point of difficulty, that friction, that's not the end. It's actually the starting line. You heard that right. That feeling of hardship is not a stop sign telling you to turn back. It's a signpost telling you that you're pushing past all the easy, obvious answers. It's the necessary ingredient for getting to the truly creative, valuable ideas. The good stuff only starts when it gets hard.
Okay, now for a totally different but equally fascinating idea. It turns out there are these predictable moments in our lives where we're almost psychologically programmed to feel stuck. And believe it or not, it all has to do with a single number.
Yep, the number 9. I know it sounds a little weird, but Alter's research uncovered this incredibly powerful pattern in our behavior, and it's all driven by ages that end in the number 9.
So think about it. When we're on the doorstep of a new decade, turning 29, 39, 49, you name it, we subconsciously start to do this massive life audit. We look at that big milestone coming up and we start asking the big questions. Am I happy? Is my life meaningful? Am I where I thought I'd be? And this internal review triggers some pretty major shifts. And this search for meaning can push us in two totally opposite directions. On the productive side, you see this huge spike in people running their first marathon at ages like 29 or 39. But on the much darker side, those same ages see a massive rise in things like infidelity and even an increase in suicide rates. It just goes to show how powerful this subconscious life check-in really is.
Okay, so we know we misinterpret hardship, and we know our age can be a trigger. But what can we actually do about feeling stuck? Well, Alter gives us a really practical tool to start with, and he calls it a friction audit.
The main idea behind a friction audit is so simple, but it's a real game changer. It says that the biggest improvements in your life don't always come from adding more positive things. Often, the biggest wins come from systematically removing the negative things, all those little hassles and obstacles that are holding you back.
And you can do this like right now. It's super simple. First, just ask yourself, what are the 3 biggest sources of friction, the biggest hassles in my life? Second, get specific. Name them. Don't be vague. And third, focus all your energy on this. How can I remove them, or at the very least, reduce them? The payoff is huge.
All right, let's pivot to the next tool in the kit, and this one is all about your professional life. Alter's research found a really clear 2-step process for engineering what he calls a career hot streak. You know, those amazing periods of incredible success and output.
So it all starts with the phase of exploration. The goal here is to go wide. You're casting a giant net. Your default answer to opportunities is yes. You're just trying a ton of different things. But then you shift gears into the exploitation phase. Now the goal is to go deep. You've seen what's out there, you've found the most promising path, and your default answer becomes no to almost everything else, so you can truly focus. And this isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. A truly great life or career involves cycling between these 2 modes over and over again. You expand your world through exploration, then you contract your focus to exploit what you've learned. And hey, when you feel stuck again, you just kick off a new cycle of exploration.
This brings us to what might be the single most important idea for getting unstuck.
Alter tells this amazing story about the musician Jeff Tweedy. When Tweedy feels creatively blocked, he does something that sounds totally backwards. He asks himself, what's the absolute worst musical phrase I could write right now? And why does he do that? Because it gets him moving. It's action.
And that's the whole point. The ultimate antidote to being stuck isn't finding the perfect next step. It's not even about moving forward necessarily. It's just action. Any action. Even a bad idea or a sideways step breaks that feeling of paralysis and gives you feedback. It gets the engine started again.
So, I'll leave you with this final thought. Forget about solving the whole big problem for a moment. Based on everything we just talked about, what is one small, maybe even imperfect action you can take today just to get the ball rolling?